Come on in, Steve Hilton. We need another British accent on this programme. We're short-staffed for Brits right now. Steve, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Stuart.
What was the most important thing that came out of that press conference?
Well, I think, first of all, I just totally agree with you about the transparency and with General Keane. It's going to be very difficult to go back to the traditional type of politician who just reads out the talking points and the prepared statements after a brilliant performance like that. Secondly, I thought it really showed something very, very important about President Trump. He does develop these strong personal relationships. You could really see that with him and Theresa May. And that's how he does business. And that's why he can make things happen that other leaders can't. Specifically on Brexit, I think it's really important to get into the details there because actually the president was right about Brexit. Theresa May is having a tough time selling her Brexit deal because all the things she said there, that it does enable Britain to do a trade deal with the US, that European law isn't supreme in the UK as it used to be, and that migration can be controlled. There are real serious expert voices in the UK today who are saying that is not true. Plus, this is the opening bid of a negotiation with the EU. So while she stands there and says we can do a great trade deal with the US, that's not necessarily true. And there's one final thing I'd say, which is there was a huge tease in that press conference, which is that we kept hearing about the president's suggestions to Theresa May about how to handle the Brexit negotiation.
He wouldn't say
never know. Exactly. We never heard exactly what it was. I think we're all dying to know exactly what he suggested.
The president said his suggestion to Theresa May was too brutal to be revealed. Heaven knows what that suggestion was, but he was having none. Nobody would say what it is. What about the protests, Steve? I believe that insulting balloon lasted only 2 hours. They've now deflated it. But I do hear that there are significant demonstrations going on in London right now. What do you make of it?
I think it's really important for our American viewers to understand that this is just the usual suspects. It's the same old angry, noisy left that go and protest about anything. And right now, the way of signalling their virtue, of showing what good moral people they are, is to protest about Donald Trump. They're not interested in or even aware of the substance of what Donald Trump is actually doing, the fact that his policies are helping working Americans, helping to lift the economy, helping to raise living standards, all the things that you'd think they would support. They're not interested in that. They just want to show that they're good moral people because they're taking a stand against Donald Trump. It's really not to be taken seriously.
Last one. I've only got 30 seconds, Steve. But it seemed like President Trump was resurrecting the premiership of Theresa May. He was backing her really fully there, having dissed her in that interview in The Sun earlier.
Yeah, and I think it's a good example of how that personal chemistry is so important to how he operates. And he obviously has struck up a very warm relationship with her, which he hasn't, seemingly, with Angela Merkel. And I think it's really interesting. You're quite right. He really boosted her today, and that is something that none of us expected.
All right. Yeah, we did not. There's a lot of things we were not expecting which came our way. I'd love to hear that brutal suggestion for getting out of Europe. All right, Steve, thanks very much for joining us, sir. We will see you again soon.